What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Tape, and today bringing you another 3-round NFL mock draft, 100 picks to fly through, and today kind of serves as the pre-free agency mock draft, so we'll see how much this changes over the course of, I'm putting this out Sunday night because the legal tampering period kicks off Monday, March 9th, so we'll see how much over the course of the next 7 days, how much this changes the board, because really, once teams start spending money, they tell you their priorities, and now kind of gives you a good roadmap for what they're going to eventually do once we get to late April. So this is kind of the pre-free agency mock draft, so we can kind of compare and contrast, but it's also the post-Max Crosby trade with 2 first-round picks going to the Raiders, one this year, one in 2027, and then the Ravens, of course, getting Max Crosby. And as a Steelers fan, I just can't wait to have to deal with Max and Myles Garrett for 4 games in total a year, and at least now I don't have to deal with Trey Hendrickson, so that is what it is. And if you're Joe Burrow, you got TJ Watt, Max Crosby, and Myles Garrett in the division. Holy cow. So that's not ideal. But let's waste no more time. Let's jump right into what you all came in today's video for, and that is this 3-round mock draft. Fernando Mendoza will be the number 1 overall pick. I won't need to say anything more than that. And then for today's video, I'm going to go with the betting favorite of the number 2 overall pick for the Jets. I'm going to go Orville Reese. I've been bouncing, last mock we did Styles. I've done Reese. I've done Bain. Feels like, kind of consensus and chalk's kind of moving in that Orville Reese direction. So let's explore that here with him being the pick at number 2 overall. And then that takes us to, the Cardinals. What do I want to do here? And really a lot of different directions I could go here, but ultimately I decided on going with David Bailey. I think him plus Josh Sweat, that's an awesome 1-2 punch on the edge. And then anything you get from old Mizzou pass rusher, former first-round pick, 27th pick overall, whatever you get out of him, at this point, it's just it's house money. Darius Robinson, that's his name. So, anything you get out of Darius is just kind of house money now, but Bailey plus Sweat, I think that's a nice 1-2 punch to kind of build the foundation of that defense around. Plus, Walter Nolan, 13th overall pick from a season ago. So, we'll go with David Bailey there at 3. Depending on what this team does with Budda Baker, I could just see a world where they take Caleb Downs to replace Budda Baker there, but going to go with one of the premium position guys. I'm going to go with David Bailey. And then that then takes us to the Titans. So I'm going to go with Ruben Bain. Could be a lot more 4-man fronts. That's kind of in the Robert Saleh MO. You get Jermaine Johnson, who can kind of on one side be, shades of like also the same guy who took Will McDonald, but who's, one type of an edge rusher on one side, and then Ruben Bain to me is almost the complete opposite on the other side. Did come in just under 270 pounds at the combine, but still big body, physical, build-up speed type of pass rusher, and especially utilizing stunts and twists. Like, that could be a really, really fun weapon there in the middle of that Tennessee D-line, playing off of Jeffrey Simmons, playing off of Jermaine Johnson. So I like going Ruben Bain there at number 4. And Robert Saleh has always prioritized run defense, and Bailey does bring that to the table, of course. To the Giants, I was finally able to make this happen. Let's go Sonny Styles at 5. I think this is honestly the floor for Sonny, which is, that's dangerous to say when we're talking about, the number 5 overall pick. But, Harbaugh, part of the, regime that brought in Roquan Smith to Baltimore mid-year, and that made a huge impact. And I'm looking at the middle of that defense in New York, and they could use, a Roquan Smith type, to be honest with you, for the next 8 to 12, maybe even longer. So I'm going to go Sonny Styles here at 5, and then we'll go offense with our next pick for the G-Men. For the Browns, I'll jump on the hype train. I'll go with Monroe Freeling here. I'll be completely honest. Last mock I did Spencer Fano, and especially post Titus Howard trade. I mean, I'm looking to move on from DeJuan Jones. I don't really need him playing left tackle, so Freeling has a place here. But I still think like the interior offensive line's wide open, and Spencer Fano, whether it's guard or center, like that's a guy that could be an impact playmaker for your run game. And not often we say that about an offensive lineman. So I would probably lean towards Fano here, but we're getting to the point of the season where predictive is kind of where I need to start taking these mock drafts. So I'm going to go with Monroe Freeling and jump on the hype train there. Washington Commanders, to be completely honest, I don't know if I've done this yet, but I'm going to go Caleb Downs at 7. Maybe I have, maybe in some of the very early mocks, but, with Bain gone, Bailey's gone, a lot of these, top tier defensive play, Orville Reese, Sonny Styles, all those guys are gone. And still with the Commanders, I think you're pumped up about the idea of Caleb Downs playing here. It really shores up that backside or the back end of that defense. Actually, now that I think about it, I have made this pick before because I basically said, all the snaps they've given Jeremy Reeves, just imagine a way better version of that player, and that's Caleb Downs. So whether it's free, strong, playing him some in the nickel too, I think could be kind of fun. Caleb Downs just raises the floor of the defense. So everything I've said about Downs to Cincinnati, honestly, the same is true for Washington, and it won't be the last defensive pick we make in today's video. New Orleans Saints going back to the well here with the Jeremiyah Love selection, and then we'll go back to the offensive line later on to kind of help justify this pick. But, I think this team's done the legwork in a lot of ways. They got a rookie contract quarterback. They drafted tackle each the last 2 years. The interior is still a little shaky. We're trying to figure out those 2 guard spots. Again, we'll come back to that at 42. And the D-line could definitely use some pieces to overhaul, but Bain's gone, Bailey's gone, the top two linebackers are gone, Downs is gone. So at this point, I feel even stronger about going with the Jeremiyah Love route. And you can get receiver pretty deep in this class. So I'm going to go with Jeremiyah Love, pair him up long-term with Devin Neal to be like the backfield in New Orleans for head coach Kellen Moore. Kansas City Chiefs, to be completely honest, last time out I did Kenyon Sadiq, and that was with Carnell Tate on the board, and that's a glaring oversight on my part. Carnell Tate's the exact receiver we've been begging the Chiefs to draft, right? X plays on the outside, vertical tree, go get those 50-50 balls, just a natural ball winner. I mean, imagine if you could just drop T. Higgins on the Kansas City Chiefs. How much more certain would you feel about the Chiefs and their Super Bowl chances? Odds are pretty darn good. So, that's kind of, to me, where I see Carnell Tate kind of going as the T. Higgins type. So, yeah, that'd be awesome. Just drop that in the middle of this Chiefs defense, Chiefs offense, and then we'll go defense later on in this mod. All right, Cincinnati Bengals here at 10. Again, kind of jumping on the hype train here. I was always a big fan of Dylan Thieneman. He's been a top 30 player for me pretty much this entire cycle. Now within the top 25. I think he's right at 20 to be exact. But so a little bit of reach on my board, but for their needs, and specifically with Al Golden, wants to run a lot of single high, relies heavily on a free safety. Think about Xavier Watts at Notre Dame, kind of what they wanted Geno Stone to be. Well, Dylan Thieneman, before he got to Oregon, was the nation's best center field, free safety, his 2 years at Purdue. Had some missed tackles, sometimes would take the cheese, but that was the advantage of then seeing him go to Oregon, get to play a more disciplined style of football, become a better tackler, see him in more split safety looks. You basically got to see a rounded out version of who Dylan Thieneman is, plus just better coaching, better environment, more resources, et cetera, when you go from Purdue to Oregon. So I like this kind of a home run fit, to be completely honest, for an Al Golden defense. All right, Dolphins are next up here at 11. I'm going to be boring and go Mansour Delane. I mean, the secondary just needs to get younger and cheaper and more athletic. And Delane didn't run a 40 or anything like there, so that's not really checking the athletic box. But you need a number one corner of the future. His footwork, honestly, takes the long speed out of the equation because he's just so smooth. He's always in phase. He does a great job at the line of scrimmage, preventing guys getting off the line of scrimmage. So love Mansour Delane, and we will go secondary again later on to get a little bit more speed in the mix. I'll leave it at that. All right, pick number 12 for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go with Akeem Mesidor, bigger body defensive end who played the run pretty well last year at Miami. That could be something that Dallas covets, and it'll be kind of a theme that we build on in this draft with their next pick at 20. But also a guy who has a deep bag, really fast, active hands, as wide a pass rush plan as anybody in this class. So Dallas is looking to get back on track. They're looking to win now, right? They're not looking to pick top 15 next year. So I think they will spend a good amount of money in free agency. I totally understand why they were in on the Max Crosby thing. Getting 2 1s for Micah Parsons to then 1 and a second for Crosby. It's you have the extra ammunition, just do 2 1s for Crosby if you really want them. But also, if you're trading Parsons, why give up that same exact a couple of picks, 2 1s that you got from Parsons? Why then ship that right back out for Max Crosby? So I don't know. I'm kind of 2 minds for that. But that being said, Akeem Mesidor here at 12, an instant impact guy, bigger body guy, should help them against the run as well. And again, that will be a theme once we get to pick number 20, run defense, supporting that unit from that side. All right, Los Angeles Rams, gonna go a little weird here. So this is also for first mock draft post Trent McDuffie trade. So congratulations, Los Angeles Rams. I adore that addition. He'll probably play on the outside, and from everything I've heard from people who cover the Chiefs, that's what Trent wanted. He was kind of over the nickel life. He wanted to be on the outside, saw more money there. So that kind of checks out for me. I'm still going to go corner. And my kind of thinking is they haven't given him the extension yet, but look, he's 25 years old. He's going to get a 4 to 5 year deal. So let's just call it a 4-year contract where you're paying Trent McDuffie top of the line premier corner money. On the other side, it kind of would make sense to, it's a little unfortunate then that basically in 4 years time, 5th year option here for McCoy, we're kind of throwing that out the window just for the sake of this argument. But basically in 4 years time, both your corners are kind of up on the market. Well, at that point, Trent McDuffie's hitting his 30s, and then we'll see where we're at with Jermon McCoy. But I'm going to go McCoy here. One, they just hired Tennessee's DB coach, but while you're paying one corner a lot of money, I kind of like the idea of getting top flight premium value on the other side, right? So you're paying McDuffie a ton of money, but on the other side, you got a lot of bang for your buck with Jermon McCoy if he works out. Look at the Eagles and Quinyon Mitchell. Like what you're getting versus what you're paying is about as stark a difference as what you could possibly get. So I kind of like the idea, and honestly, I'm cool with Warren McClendon going into the year as a starter. I think he earned that with how he played last year. They kind of did a similar thing with Alaric Jackson, and that's worked out. So I'm willing to give McClendon the benefit of the doubt. As much as I like Ty Simpson, I'm not really here for it at 13. So I'm going to go Jermon McCoy. And while you got one expensive corner on one side, you're going to be getting a lot of premium value in the sense that McCoy, I think, is the best corner in this class. And if he stays healthy, getting him on a rookie contract at pick 13, That's an immense value, which, kind of even on that note, I meant to mention this here at 8 with Jeremiyah Love. This right here, part of, my last one, I kind of go 4. The amount of money he'd be making at the number 4 overall pick basically makes him a top 5 paid running back. But here at pick 8, he's basically in Jalen Warren contract territory. So it's kind of insane. Just 4 picks later, how much better the contract looks for drafting a running back there. So forgot to mention that earlier, but that's kind of the sweet spot. Like 8, you're not paying him a whole lot of money, but you're getting a ton of value. And then here for the Rams, you're paying 1 corner. Let's go get a premium value, really, for on-field play versus what we're paying that guy with Jermon McCoy on the other side. And frankly, if you're the Rams, like, what was the reason you lost games last year? Your secondary. So I don't mind double dipping in that realm. Not at all. To the Las Vegas Raiders. This is fun getting to talk about them here at 14. Honestly, I like that trade for both sides. I give the Raiders an A to an A-, to be completely honest with you. A, because you don't want to be the Bengals in 2 years. Like with where the Bengals are with Trey Hendrickson right now, where it's like, we probably could have traded that guy and got some premium assets that, holy cow, look at this roster. We could have probably used those premium assets. But at the same time, you also needed the pass rusher. So, I understood where they saw the winning window. We're going to try to take advantage of it. But because of that, they missed out on the picks window. The Raiders, your winning window kind of starts in 1.5 to 2 years. So by the time Max Crosby's 30, that's when you're going to hopefully be entering this winning window. So moving on from him, getting 2 first-round picks, getting to take Francis Mauigoa here, home run, and then you get a pick in 2027. And even if the Ravens are awesome and they're back to picking where they normally are, not 14, but 27, 29, 31, 32. Let's just say the Ravens even win the Super Bowl. Give me as many swings of the bat as I possibly can get in 2027. That class is going to be banana land across the board. So any and all swings of the bat in 2027 are good. And then for the Ravens, your pass rush was abysmal last year. You were one of the bottom 5 teams in pass rush win rate, sacks, pressures, you name it. So to go get a difference maker who also plays the run at a high level with your new defensive-minded head coach, Jesse Minter, in place, I kind of like that fit. So I'd probably give the Raiders an A and the Ravens a B. It's an expensive move, maybe B- because it's 2 first-round picks, one of them being pick 14. But that being said, I think it helps the Ravens in their current timeline, and I think it makes sense for the Raiders given their current timeline as well. But I'm going to take CC Mauigoa here at 14 because, DJ Glaze, I think that's definitely a spot where you can upgrade and get a better player. I thought about guard here with Vega Ioane, but I think this team probably positions them. There's a lot of teams that could go after Tyler Linderbaum, but if they go get Linderbaum, that's a home run fit for Clint Kubiak's offense. Jackson Powers-Johnson's one of your guards. If you could bring back Parham, that would be a home run. But to me, I think between Linderbaum and JPJ, I think getting Mauigoa on one side, Colton Miller back healthy on the other side, that to me, I feel better about the 4/5 and then hiding a guard versus if you go Vega here, JPJ, maybe we sign Linderbaum, but then our weak links right tackle, I think it's easier to hide a guard than a tackle, basically, is kind of my point of thinking here. And also Mauigoa, big-bodied, physical mover of people. This guy's got Raider written all over him. So love getting him back to the West Coast too, with his Polynesian background, coming from California, then goes to IMG in Florida. Talks about how big of a transition that was for him. So getting him back out to the West Coast feels pretty cool for him as well. Anyways, didn't mean to go on such a long tangent there. Let's get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15. I'm going to go Kenyon Sadiq. I hate how kind of chalk this has become. But look, the guy runs a sub 4.40. He's not getting the back half of the first round. So this is kind of where I have to put an end to the slide there. Freaky athlete. We're also in a spot where Mike Evans is going to test free agency. You got 2 more years on the Chris Godwin deal. Really, you could end that contract after this upcoming season. So we may be looking as soon as 2 years' time where it's okay, thank goodness we have Kenyon Sadiq because he's our 3rd pass catcher behind Jalen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka. So he helps in the run game right now with his ability to block in line. Love that, having him lead the way for Bucky Irving when you're running wide right or wide left. You can line him up on either side of the line, obviously. But then a year or 2 down the line, we might be really counting our blessings here that the Buccaneers added that 3rd pass catcher in the form of Kenyon Sadiq. Plus, they've been on a roll for creative offensive coordinator hires. Now it's Zach Robinson in there working with Kyle Pitts last year. Felt Robinson finally made some headway with that. Be curious to see what he can do with Kenyon Sadiq. All right, let's get to the Jets here at 16. This is where I'm going to have Mekhi Lemons fall down the board, come to an end. He's one of my favorite players in this class. Yes, it leaves you a little small between Garrett Wilson and then Mekhi Lemon, but in this case, and if I'm trying to double check, I don't want to give it away too much yet. I'm trying to remember, but if we do go another receiver, it's a big body physical type, which I do believe we will draft one more receiver. But worst case scenario, Adonai Mitchell plays your X, and then Wilson becomes your Z, Lemon in the slot, or vice versa. So worst case scenario, we can make this work with this given bunch, but if a memory holds, we will go at least one more receiver, and that will be our true vertical sacrificial X, big body guy. And then Adonai Mitchell kind of just becomes house money, which really, frankly, when he was a part of the Colts trade with Sauce Gardner, you make that trade because of the picks, and then Adonai Mitchell is just that house money / cherry on top. So I'm going to go with Makai Lemon, too good of a football player to really get to the back half of the first round. Detroit Lions, I feel like I've been waffling on the Lions so much the last few mocks where, all right, Taylor Decker's coming back. Okay, cool. I'm not going to worry about tackle. Then they say, okay, they're going to recut him. Okay, well, shoot. Do I go Caleb Lomu here? So honorable mention, I've done that a ton, though. I have gone Caleb Lomu to death for the Lions here at 17. I'm going to roll Freelos off the board as well. So I'm going to do Spencer Fano here. And I have no idea what they're going to end up doing at left tackle. That is kind of like the one glaring omission from this Lions, mock today. I don't think the 49ers let Trent Williams go, but God, if Trent Williams leaves San Francisco, the Detroit Lions should be making that phone call to his agent as fast as humanly possible / calling San Francisco to see what the price is as fast as humanly possible. But that being said, they tried to get this team tried to get Frank Ragnow-Luki to come out of retirement. That didn't work out. You could feel the absence of a player quite like that. And dude, with Spencer Fano's lower body strength, his ability to move people off the line of scrimmage, his natural leverage in the run game, and his grip strength. Like, if you're going to replace Frank Ragnow, frankly, Spencer Fano is the guy to do it with in this class. So, yes, I know this leaves left tackle as a huge question mark. We're about to get into free agency. We're going to see what happens. There's going to be some crazy trades we don't see coming. So, let's just say the Lions are able to figure out that left tackle situation / they give us a vote of confidence for Gianni Amano, and he's going to be their left tackle. I'm going to go try to find that Frank Ragnow replacement in the form of Spencer Fano. All right, Minnesota Vikings. I've been talking about doing this for a long time, but to the best of my knowledge, I haven't done it yet. We'll go Caleb Banks here at 18, and then we'll go with kind of an Avion Terrell type once we get to the second round. But, the Javon Hargrave, the Jonathan Allen thing, that just really hasn't worked out. So next to Jalen Redmond, who was a great run defender last year, could they find some pass rush juice on the interior? And if you're willing to, take a swing of the bat, Caleb Banks, there's a high ceiling to be chased there, like tons of pop in his hands, lots of pass rush juice potentially at the next level. Just got to get this guy to be able to play with better pad leverage. And honestly, you just got to take a roll in the dice on the injury side of everything where can this guy actually play as a full-time starter? But here at 18, I can see where a team has the risk appetite for it. And also like his body type, his power, and like this crazy havoc, Brian Flores defense, sign me up for that. Could be a lot of fun. All right, Carolina Panthers. This is where I'm going to have Caleb Lomu come off the board. So could have been at 17. I'm going to have it be here at 19. Panthers fans, I'm still going through comments of the last mock, so I apologize if you hated that one where I went Monroe Freeling. But, man, Akim Ekwonu, a patella tendon tear kept Rashawn Slater out all of last season, and he got hurt before week 1. So with that patella tendon injury coming in the playoffs, I just don't really see a pathway back to the field this year for Akim Ekwonu. Could be wrong, but still it's probably not at least until the second half of the year. So he's also in a contract year or two. So I don't know. You're kind of in a murky situation there at left tackle. I'm also like thinking about their analytics department and how they've drafted since making some of the hires of like Eric Eager types. And it's not typically on tight ends, linebackers, safety. It's on receivers and premium positions like that. So it feels like it's kind of between left tackle and edge here. And frankly, I'd rather take Lomu here at 19 than some of the edge rushers available. And kind of even to that point, I'm going to go with CJ Allen here for the Dallas Cowboys at 20. Kind of again doubling down on what we said at 20, where a bigger body type and a key Mesidor try to help stop against the run. Now let's go CJ Allen, who picking him at 20 is a little rich for me personally. But that being said, like as a compliment to DeMarvion Overshown, who one of my favorite players coming out of that class, my number 5 off-ball linebacker that entire cycle from summer all the way through the end of the process. Big DeMarvion Overshown guy, but he was this long, athletic safety converted to linebacker who's really great in coverage. And then even at the NFL level has gotten better and better playing downhill, playing against the run, filling gaps, filling lanes, being used as a blitzer too. So like he's a better and better player, but then you get the crazy injury. He comes back last year, small sample size, hard to tell if he's gonna be able to play 17 games this upcoming season, but if he can, his athleticism, his range, his coverage feel is the perfect complement next to CJ Allen, where the coverage components, it's still TBD. We're still trying to figure that part out. But CJ Allen is a downhill linebacker. His instincts against the run could even use him a little bit as a blitzer if he really got crazy. That's a home run fit, 1-2. So Mesidor, Allen to help try to get this team, that front 7 better against the run. Feels like kind of what Jerry Jones is talking up, at least when he traded Micah Parsons. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers here at 21. We won't do the Ty Simpson thing, not today. Let's go with Jordan Tyson. I've also been looking to do this in one of these mocks where maybe the injury risks move him so far down the board. The Steelers look at him and say, hey, this is kind of the argument for it here. At 21, yes, he's missed almost half of his college games played. That's still a risk here in the first round. But if he only missed 2 games in his college career, if he had only missed 2 instead of like 44, 48%, whatever it is, that's the only thing keeping Tyson from being wide receiver 1. And I've said as much. His tape is the best of anybody in this class. As much as I love Makai Lemon, and I have adored the step forward that Carnell Tate took this year, taking away the injury risk, Jordan Tyson's the best receiver in this class, bar none. So And if he only missed 1 or 2 games in his college career, he's probably the number 4 pick to the Titans. Probably not getting past the Giants at 5, especially the guys who can play the X. Good compliment there to Malik Neighbors. So then, okay, yes, obviously we're factoring back now in the injury risk because that is a part of the evaluation. So where that risk appetite might not be worth it at 4 or 5, despite knowing the talent is worth a selection in that range. Here at 21, the value in the selection and the talent are certainly there because it was there at 4 and 5. But here at 21, you might be willing to take that injury risk where it's like, hey, look, injuries get everyone. We've seen guys who were completely healthy in college get the injury bug at the next level. We've seen guys who battled injuries continue to be injured at the next level. Sometimes injuries are just, variable, and also like Jordan Tyson got a ton of volume at Arizona State. How much does that play into the factor, right? They peppered that guy with the football. So how much did that really kind of lead him down the track of maybe being more injured than what he would have been in a more balanced offense? So a lot of what ifs you can play here, but here at 21, the receiver need at Pittsburgh is apparent, right? Like it's DK Metcalf and not much else. Seems like Calvin Austin's probably on his way out. Roman Wilson's been a loss of a 3rd round pick. So got to go get some help for DK Metcalf and whoever's under center there in Pittsburgh, assuming it's Rodgers. Let's go get the best intermediate route runner in this class. And let's just cross our fingers, pray to whoever you want to pray to that he can absolutely stay healthy. Because if he does, then this becomes one of the absolute steals of the class. This becomes like Jeffrey Simmons going 21 at the Titans level of like, oh my God, how did he fall there? Let's get to the Chargers next up at 22. Vega Ioane, real easy one. And anytime he's there, this kind of feels like the floor for Vega, to be completely honest. Good enough athlete to fit with Mike McDaniel wants to do in that wide zone kind of basis, what he did in Miami, but also like a football player and like a mover of people off the line of scrimmage, a brick wall and pass pro. I could see where Jim Harbaugh is like, yeah, that's my kind of guy. That's a football player. Get him on my football field. So interior offensive line and apparent need there in Los Angeles, and this becomes a perfect fit for that offense. Eagles, you're next up here at 23. I'm going to go back to the well with the Evian Terrell selection. So you get some flexibility here. DeJean can play outside, Terrell in the nickel, or vice versa. Honestly, I know Terrell's not the biggest guy, but it's a zone-heavy defense. His instincts and his eyes and athleticism will more than play with that. And he plays bigger than 5'10" and some change and 180, 190. So given that, I would keep on the outside, and I would just keep letting Cooper DeJean be a force of nature from the slot. So to me, I think this is a much better version of Adoree Jackson there on the outside in Philadelphia. All right, pick number 24, the Cleveland Browns. Look, I've talked to some Browns people, and it seems like that team really likes Cedric Tillman, so they might not do this. But the big thing that always comes up is we like him when he's healthy, but it's just he's not on the field enough. So I wonder if eventually it's just one of those things where, new head coach comes in and it's like, hey, I understand you may like the player, but I need someone who I can depend on. And again, Denzel Boston, not really a big injury track record to say that, oh, he's going to get hurt a ton of the next league. But, injuries can come for anybody. So that being said, who knows? And Cedric Tillman's honestly kind of one of those guys where I think he missed a couple of games that last year at Tennessee, but like he's missed a lot at the NFL level, more so than he did in college, at least, again, off the top of my head. But Denzel Boston, let's just say the Cedric Tillman thing, like we're ready to move on from that. Denzel Boston, this becomes your number 1 X receiver, can run the vertical route tree, can make those 50-50 grabs, ball winner, big wide catch radius. Whoever's under center, whether it's Shadur Sanders, it's Deshaun Watson, I'll let the Browns figure that mess out until we get to 27 and get to replace one of those guys. But whoever's throwing him the football, Denzel Boston's going to make their life a lot easier with his catch radius, his ability to go win it in the air, and sneaky, again, didn't run the 40, but like on field, to me, he gets a little sneaky speed when he gets down the field and kind of that flying 20 range, get 20, 30 yards on the field. All of a sudden, Boston can start getting some separation. All right, Chicago Bears, you're next up here at 25. Last time in the last mock, I kind of waffled back and forth between Caden McDonald, Peter Woods, went with Caden. This time around, I'm going to go with Peter Woods. Say this is the team that gets him back on track. And one, the high-level run defense, this allows you to move on from Andrew Billings, easy right there. But also, man, like this is a team that's looking to win right now, looking to compete. That could be the, kind of spark that Peter Woods needs to stay committed, stay involved, keep his level of play at 100%, because it just felt like this year at Clemson, second half of the year, maybe he just kind of coasted the rest of the way. Chicago's looking to win, and they're looking to go back-to-back as division champs. So, like, maybe that's the competitive environment that Peter Woods needs to just stay throttled in at 100% full-time. And then, like, you get to work with, Montez Sweat on that D-line, like, and then, whoever else may come in free agency. I could totally see this team being in the Trey Hendrickson market. That type of D-line could get the environment needed for Peter Woods to get some one-on-ones, and hopefully we see that step forward as a pass rusher. But really good athlete, high-level run defender. So minimum, he's worth the spot there at 25, and then untapped potential from a pass rush standpoint. Buffalo Bills here at 26. I'm going to have them actually trade back. We are going to have Ty Simpson go in the first round of this mock draft. And I was looking at who doesn't have that many picks, and then who has some picks they could see as expendable. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. I wish we could be making this pick in this video here for the Bills. And The points don't totally add up, so you might need to throw in 182 to make it totally even with the Bills. But frankly, the Bills have 2 picks in the top 100, so pick 104. It's just outside the top 100. We're going to get a great scheme fit here at 34. So frankly, I could see a world where the Bills are saying, hey, we have 2 top 100 picks. That selection's just outside that range, and it's before our next selection at 126. We'll move back a couple of spots. We'll bite the bullet on the value side. Arizona, you come up. We know you're not taking a guy that we're going to draft, so I'm going to go ahead and force this trade. Again, it's actually a little bit of a generous trade up here for the Cardinals, and they in turn will then get to draft Ty Simpson. And part of my thinking was they could just take him at 34, but they have a couple extra picks they could move on from. It's outside the top 100. And then like the 5th-year option to me is probably worth it for a guy like Ty Simpson, who only 15 career college starts. Maybe you don't play him right away in year 1. So to me, it was like, hey, we have some extra picks to play with. Let's go ahead and lock in that 5th-year option. So to me, this time it made sense. Sometimes the 5th-year option is a little overrated, because by year 3 or 4, is this our guy or is it not? So sometimes it's a little overrated, but like Ty in the college start situation makes it a little bit murky. So you probably go into the year with Jacoby starting, and then eventually you try to turn it over to Ty Simpson at some point just to start making an evaluation. And then, like I said, the Bills, we're going to get a home run fit at 34. Don't worry. We're going to get a great fit. And then we get to the San Francisco 49ers here at 27. I'm going to go with Omar Cooper Jr. I kind of went back and forth between him and Casey Concepcion. Really here, if you're the 49ers, both are home run fits. Both these are probably the best 2 like yards after the catch guys of the guys like seriously getting first round consideration. So I'm going to go with Omar Cooper Jr. I can just see where the drops with KC maybe lean you a little bit more in the direction of going with Omar Cooper Jr. So I'm going to go there at 27, but easily could be Casey Concepcion. Both are great satellite players, yards after the catch threats. Both can get vertical. Casey's probably got to step on Omar Cooper Jr., but Cooper Jr. a little bit bigger of a frame, better hands. So 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. It just comes down to what type of body type and what type of work are you trying to give a guy once we drafted. All right, next up, Houston Texans. We're going to have Caden McDonald come off the board, and then we're going to go guard with our next selection. The value just kind of worked out really well here, where Caden is an instant impact, high-level run defender, gets to play next to another former Buckeye and Tommy Togiai. And then, playing on a D-line with Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, you're going to have one-on-ones, and you get to work with D'Amico Ryan as your head coach. We get to see what the untapped potential as a pass rusher is for Caden McDonald. And I've said this plenty of times. Tyreek went first round last year, and I think that was worthwhile. I think he was worth a first-round pick. Then, to me, Caden McDonald's got to go round 1. Kansas City Chiefs, first time getting to see them pick it here at 29. This would be one, man. Like, imagine if I forgot Kenyon Sadiq and he just fell here. Like, that would be insane. Kenyon Sadiq and Carnell Tate for this team. Good Lord. But instead, here at pick number 29, I'm gonna go with a roll of the dice here. He's not really their type. I mean, actually, Gelati was a little sawed off, but he's kind of like an inside body type more than like an edge. But I'm gonna go Cassius Howell. Look, they did the Tyreek Hill trade, and then a part of the haul they got back for Tyreek became a pick in the form of George Karlaftis. It felt like they understood where they need to try to get some cap savings, right? Like, where's the value? Where can we try to find 1%? And Karlaftis has been fine, and now he's being paid, but he's kind of this heavy-handed edge setting, high-level run defender, power rusher. So on the other side, Felix and DK Ozama hasn't worked out. So can we take another swing of the bat as this more first step, bend-oriented finesse style rusher? Again, it didn't work out with FAU, but how he's super sawed off, but the pass rush will absolutely play. So it does kind of leave some question marks. Do you bring back Charles Menahue as like an early down guy because you want to hide Cassius Howell? But this team just needs more pass rush juice. And the Chiefs will get back on track. The Chiefs will be a good football team next year. So could Cassius Howell be their Dwight Freeney type, right? Like, it's an interesting body type and it only plays in the right situation. But Dwight Freeney was the closer for the Colts. Could Cassius Howell be something like that at 29? I think it's worth exploring that option. And again, like, you just drafted a wide receiver. Now you drafted an edge. So you didn't want to pay Trent McDuffie, and now we're trying to find spots where we can keep the salary cap in our favor. Rookie contract receiver, rookie contract edge rusher. Those are 2 great ways to try to find and steal some value from the cap. All right, let's get to the Denver Broncos. They're next up here at 30. This one, I'm going to have Casey Concepcion come off the board. I've often said that, like, to me, the ideal round 1 player for Denver is Omar Cooper Jr. Cooper Jr. just went to the 49ers. He's kind of a perfect fit for them, too, to be completely honest. Would have been a great Rams pick there at 29, to be completely honest, if they wanted to go all in. But that being said, with KC here, I do think he's a better version of Marvin Mims. And honestly, like, he's got the same kind of drop problems as Troy Franklin. So I'd rather just start kicking the tires and seeing what Casey Concepcion could be versus like Troy Franklin. But I love Casey. Last year at A&M, we got to finally see him in a true receiver-based role, getting to really kind of flex his muscles, doing more than just being a slot gadget player. So I'm going to say that the Broncos kind of buy into that, continue to develop him, and we get to continue to see his route tree expand, his comfortability making tough contested grabs and shoring up some of those drops. I think that will get even better in a more traditional role. And that started last year at A&M, and now it can continue in Denver. All right, let's get to the New England Patriots. Look, I do want to address this off the top. I'm going to go Blake Miller here, but no guards here for the Patriots. But that was just because the more I thought about it, I'm like, look, yes, the move to Jared Wilson to center after you trade Garrett Bradbury, that's a home run move. Wilson's a center, not a guard. But that being said, like, you could draft a guard, but then it's a rookie guard next to a second-year left tackle with plenty of discussion around Will Campbell and a second-year center. So the more I thought about it, to be completely honest with you, I think they're probably moving on from Morgan Moses. I haven't heard that confirmed yet, but I've heard some say that that's kind of the direction they're maybe leaning. So I'm going to go Blake Miller here to replace Morgan Moses, and I'm going to say they get a left guard in free agency. Because, again, putting a rookie next to two second-year players doesn't feel as ideal as getting an open market free agent guard. You know, Kevin Zeitler's a right guard, but, like, someone of that ilk, Joel Bitonio, you know, like, could you take him from Cleveland? Again, more zone-oriented than gap, but, like, could you go get that veteran to put him next to two young players? To me, that fits a little bit better than going Pregnon or Basantis here, and just that whole left side's really, really young. Left side through center. So I'm going to go Blake Miller here, and I'm kind of leaning towards I think they're going to let Morgan Moses go. And if they do, Blake Miller, 54 career college starts. This guy's ready to play right away. Seattle. I'm going to go with Keldrick Falk here, and I got to give a shout out to Randy from Snap Judges. That's his podcast. I had a mock draft with him this last week. So if you liked this mock and want to see me talk more about football, definitely go check that out. And it's me talking with someone. So it's a conversation, not just a monologue. But I kind of floated the idea. We didn't end up doing it, but at least I don't think we did it. But I'm going to go Keldrick Falk here. You look at his measurables compared to Tank Lawrence, and also just like what Falk's good at right now. Like, he's not super explosive with his first step, not the most bendy in the hips, but he's got crazy ankle flexion, and he's got a nose against the run. Like, this guy just sniffs it out, stack and shed ability, finds the ball carrier in like the blink of an eye. Awesome against the run. And like, that's what Tank Lawrence does right now. And that's kind of what Tank Lawrence was coming out of Boise State, and then they developed him as a pass rusher in Dallas. So, man, and Tank Lawrence went 34 overall. You know, like, this was kind of that range where I almost look at like Keldrick Falk, and we got one more year on the Tank Lawrence deal, but then he's an open market free agent. He's in his low 30s. Yes, you could bring him back, but I think it'll be 32, maybe 33 by the time he hits the market. So it could be just one of these things where it's like, hey, natural time to let that go. And Seattle, being a smart organization that they are, could they just draft a year in advance? I totally see that. And a lot of the measurables here from Falk, and plus their play style, just Lawrence coming out of Boise, Falk coming out of Auburn, there's a lot of overlap there. So I can see this team. And like, part of the reason I'm also emphasizing that so much is like, part of the reason that like Seattle could live in nickel is, yes, Nicky Manward and what he did in the nickel, game changer there. But part of the reason they could live in a four-man front and live in nickel almost 80% of their snaps last year was because of Tank Lawrence and his run defense, and Byron Murphy and all the other guys in that line. But like, Tank Lawrence, I couldn't tell you how many times I watched Seattle this year and just watched teams smash their head against a brick wall trying to run against that line. And so much of that was Tank Lawrence. So I do think it's an important aspect of that D line too. So it's worth drafting a year in advance, not just, hey, these guys are kind of similar, let's do it because it makes sense. It's an important enough role to where I'd be a year ahead versus being a year late. All right, let's get to the second round, the day two action. I'm going to probably speed it up here, run a little bit light on time today. But if you have any questions about any of these picks, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'm going to go Colton Hood here. Easily could go first round. This team's looking for some outside corner help. Could see a world where, Aaron Glenn wants to play more man coverage. Hood plus Azaria Thomas, day two pick last year. That's a combination that could do it. And let's move on from Brandon Stevens as soon as humanly possible. Buffalo Bills, you got Cole Bishop. That's an awesome safety. Let's get back to the days of Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Let's get that two safety set up. And specifically in this new Jim Leonard defense, going to play a lot more single high. Cole Bishop as a free safety who's great coming downhill when needed. And then Emmanuel McNeil-Warren as the box safety, the Talanoa Hufanga type, using Leonard coming from Denver. Like, sign me up for that all day, every day. Also, like, great tight end eraser potential at the next level. All right, next up, Tennessee Titans. We're going to go with Chris Bell. They will not probably win right away, in this new tenure. And I think Robert Saleh and Brian Dable and that front office, they all kind of understand that it's going to take at least another year with this new regime. So they can be patient with Chris Bell, a guy whose talent should go round one, but because of the injury, he'll probably go top of round two. And he could be your X receiver long term. And then Umanor moves into the kind of Z role, Chimere Dike in the slot, or Chris Bell could be your Z, or you could be a power slot. So kind of got a lot of flexibility with how you want to deploy these guys. But I could easily see a world where maybe even by the back half of his rookie year, he's the most talented guy on that roster, and he's the guy getting all the, Brian Daboll volume coming his way. Like, this guy on shallow cross was a headache at Louisville, and that's like Brian Daboll's specialty, man. Like, shallow cross, there's Malik Neighbors on the drag. Now it's Chris Bell once he's back and healthy. I mean, to me, it kind of the pick writes itself. Vegas Raiders, man, their secondary is abysmal. So if one of the safeties was here, that would have been a home run. And honestly, like Dylan Thieneman, if he made it there to 14, kind of would have thought about it. But I'm going to go Brandon Cisse here, another guy who could go round one. Great coverage ability, willing tackler as well. So I think he fits in with a lot of what they're looking for. And Darian Porter, day 2 pick last year. I could see a world where Porter plus Cisse, that could be your outside corner tandem moving forward. All right, the Giants are on the clock here at 37. You get Sonny Styles in the first round. And sorry, I'll put your picks up so you guys have an idea of what we've already done. We've gone with that, Roquan Smith type in the middle of that defense. We've got a quarterback in the defense. We've got a star receiver. Now we just need to find some complementary pieces, especially with Wan'Dale Robinson hitting free agency. Jeremy Bernard, he could be our X. That frees up like Neighbors to play some Z in slot. Or there's a world where Wan'Dale Robinson's gone. We pay an X receiver in free agency, and then Jeremy Bernard becomes our slot. Either way you spin it, that's part of the appeal of drafting Jeremy Bernard. Any spot on the field, that guy can line up and play at X, Z, or slot. Good football player. Best 3 cone of any of the receivers at the combine. Get that guy on your football team. He's the ultimate complementary receiver if you have a superstar. Houston Texans, you're next up at 38. And as promised, we are going to go offensive line. Emmanuel Pregnon. This feels like the right spot. I'd be willing to take him late first, but like here at 38, you're claps around the war room. You're pumped up about that value, and you plug him in right away at left guard over Jarrett Patterson. And 315 pounds. He played a lot of zone at USC and Oregon, but 315 pounds, 6'5". He's got enough body mass and strength overall to kind of play more of the gap stuff. And Nick Haley, it's close to a 50-50 split. So you also want some experience and ability to play in a zone blocking scheme. All right, next up is the Cleveland Browns. They're here at 39. And I'm going to steal this one from both Dane Brugler and Corey Kinnan, especially Corey as a Browns fan. Once he doubled down on this, I was like, yeah, this one's too good to pass up. We go D'Angelo Pons. Miles Harden is he's a day 3 pick. And if you had to play him in the nickel, it's not like the end of the world, but he's a day 3 selection. And could they find an upgrade there? Absolutely. And Pons, from a coverage standpoint, I know Jim Schwartz is gone, but I could considering how bad they wanted him to stay, I could see a world where some of that DNA kind of remains with so much of that defensive side of the ball staying intact. And if they do, they continue to play a lot of man coverage. Pons is awesome in man coverage. But also what they ask of this defense, where it is a feisty, tenacious, physical defense. You got to be willing and you got to know the war you're going in against that Cleveland defense. No matter how bad they may be, that defense is not going to come easy. And Pons' tackling ability at 182 pounds is next to none, really. It's a special, it really shouldn't be that way at 182. He should not be able to be as physical and as good a tackler as he is. So this is the perfect slot corner. So doubling down on what Dane and Corey did and really makes that secondary look absolutely sick on paper with Denzel Ward, depending on if they keep Denzel Ward and what happens with MJ Emerson and some of those other pieces and whatnot. So and Tyson Campbell, right? I think he's a free agent. So some pieces in flux, but D'Angelo Pons, I love that as their new nickel corner. Kansas City Chiefs here at pick number 40. I'm going to go with Christian Miller here. This feels like they've been looking for a defensive interior piece, and they added Norman Lott last year from Tennessee, but Norman Lott was a designated pass rusher coming out of Tennessee. I think he played 88 run defense snaps over his 4 years with the Vols. That tells you everything you need to know. So Chris Jones getting up there in age, and also Jones literally lines up anywhere. And honestly, frankly, with how Norman Lott plays, you could play him at edge on an obvious passing down, and he's quick enough to do it. So I'm gonna go with Christian Miller here, get some run defense reinforcements, and that just really gives you all the pieces you need from the defensive interior side. Where do we want to put Norman Lott? Where do we want to put Chris Jones? You get to play ultimate mismatch football there. And then for the Cincinnati Bengals, we're going to stay in the defensive interior realm, and we'll go with Lee Hunter. I mean, this team has just struggled to find any sort of an answer on the defensive interior, specifically as a run defense standpoint. Chris Jenkins hasn't worked out. BJ Hill has been fine, but 33 years old. It's time to get younger, cheaper, and honestly, let's try to find a higher ceiling there. Lee Hunter, one of my favorite players. He's my IDL too, so we didn't have him go off the board in that order, but it's because I'm trying to mock and I'm trying to project forward and trying to predict what's going to end up happening. So I love him a ton, and I think here at 41 is a great value for Cincinnati, especially given their needs. To the New Orleans Saints, how do you justify a running back pick in the top 10? Well, drafting a guard right behind it is a good way to kind of backfill that. Chase Pasantis, excellent scheme fit for Kellen Moore. Plug him in immediately at left guard for Dylan Radunz. Yeah, no, if you're a Saints fan and you're objecting to that, I got questions for you. All right, pick number 43, Miami Dolphins. Need an X receiver because Waddle's, he's your number one volume guy, but better as a Z/slot. And specifically when you have Malik Washington, all right, cool. Jalen Waddle, you're our Z. So I'm going to go Chris Brazzell here at 43. Sub 4.4 speed, good ball skills, more route running and nuanced lateral movement and change of direction skills than the other Tennessee receivers that you're kind of defaulting to when you think about Chris Brazzell, the Deontay Thorntons, the Jalen Hyatts, Cedric Tillmans of the world. So Brazzell to me is a more nuanced receiver, and he's your X that you're looking for that frees up Waddle to play the Z and also still has an abundance of speed to kind of open it up middle field underneath for guys like Waddle and Washington. So home run fit there for me, Miami, and Chris Brazzell. All right, New York Jets, you're next up here at 44. But wait, hold on. We're going to have a trade go down. I'm going to have the Philadelphia Eagles move up from 54 up to 44, and they are going to then draft their heir apparent for Lane Johnson. Let me double check. What pick was it? I believe. Okay, so pick 54 is worth 360. We're going up, so we need 100 points. What pick? Oh, it was pick 98. Okay, cool. I thought it was pick 98, but then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Am I out of my mind? So the Jets get an extra top 100 pick, which look at this. So we've made 4 picks inside the top 50, but then we have to wait a little bit until 103. But now we get pick 98, likely to be accepted. Let's offer the trade. Boom. The Eagles accept. And I mean, they could go Caden Proctor, but I'm just going with Max Iheanacho. Been playing football for, basically 3.5, 4 years now. 2 years at JUCO, 2 years at Arizona State, big standout at the Senior Bowl, draft and stash, sit him for a year behind Lane Johnson, and then eventually hand him the torch, and that becomes your right tackle of the future. And, Tyler Steen, I thought played okay at right guard, but I could even see a world where maybe you get his feet wet and maybe Iheanacho earns that right guard spot. So possibilities are kind of endless with what you want to do here, but draft and stash also makes sense. I know they have Cameron Williams, but he went way later than I thought he would last year, even as a guy who I know the end of the season was pretty rough at Texas, but maybe there's still some hope there that he's their eventual developmental right tackle, because I love that they did that. I was a big fan of that. And also, I feel like the Eagles in the 6th and 7th round always get my guys. Tanner McKee, Moro Ojomo, and now Cameron Williams, like all guys. And I'm like, why were they available at that point? So I don't know. Maybe Iheanacho is not necessarily a big need here for the Eagles. But anyways, let's leave that point. Let's get on to the Baltimore Ravens next up at 45, making their first pick in this mock draft because of the Max Crosby trade. And here, I had a Ravens fan in one of the last mocks point out, like, hey, man, you're still drafting gap scheme guards. And, he's 100% right. Declan Doyle coming as the OC, coming from Chicago. Like, this is going to be a new look. And that's part of why, like, don't you just want to kind of keep Tyler Linderbaum? Feels like you should probably just keep Tyler Linderbaum because he's going to be awesome in that new zone blocking scheme. But I digress. I'm going to go Keaton Proctor here because, one, you need a left guard. You need a new left guard. Like, Andrew Voorhees, I think, just hasn't really worked. Maybe Voorhees can be better than Daniel Falele at right guard. I'd be willing to kick the tires on that. But that being said, Keaton Proctor, I think you plug him in at left guard. He's a good zone blocking scheme fit. Came in at the combine at 352. I think we're getting that weight working in the right direction. But also, Ronnie Stanley can't play forever. So I've had a lot of mocks where Proctor's been the pick for San Francisco at 27. Play him at guard for a year or two. He's your eventual Trent Williams replacement. But he's a great scheme fit now in Baltimore. And I wonder if you could do the same thing with Ronnie Stanley. He's not going to be around forever. So a year or two at guard, becomes your eventual left tackle. Get him here at 45. Kind of feels like a steal. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're here at 46. Let's run to have TJ Parker come off the board. To this point, we've only gone Kenyon Sadiq. So this team desperately needs pass rush. So I'm going to give you the best guy on the board, and that is TJ Parker. And honestly, with like what we know of Parker, we're like, I don't think the ceiling's super high, but there is a relatively high floor. 46 is a good spot for him. Pick 47. He's not my linebacker 3, but again, we're getting to the point where this is predictive. This is not just my rankings that are going into these mock drafts. So if it was my board, I'd go Josiah Trotter, and you just moved on from Zaire Franklin, one tackle machine, and you draft another one in Josiah Trotter. But frankly, with Lou Anarumo and the types of backers he's liked, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, they've all kind of had like a coverage background and skill set, and like athleticism has kind of been a prerequisite for Lou Anarumo. So J-Rod, I'm going to go with Jacob Rodriguez. Way better testing numbers than we really ever thought. When you kind of watch him on film and who he was at Texas Tech, but he lit up the combine. He put on a show. Best 3 of any of the linebackers my memory holds. So I'm gonna go with Jacob Rodriguez. He kind of feels like the Lou Anarumo type, and frankly, with that testing numbers, kind of has to go top 50. So he's my off-ball linebacker. He's below Trotter and he's behind Golday, to be completely honest with you. But I could see a world where you flip him and Golday. So he's my off-ball linebacker 4 or 5. I haven't gone back and done final checks, so TBD. But he does feel very much like a Lou Anarumo type. All right, Atlanta Falcons, you are next up. I'm going to go with Ted Hurst. I don't know why he's so low in this updated look at the simulator, but 4.42 speed with what he did at the Senior Bowl at 6'4". Yeah, get that guy on my football team. 202 pounds at the combine too. Yeah, like I'm good on Ted Hurst in the top 50. Like I'm totally here for it. He did have 7 drops last year, 6 the year before that, and it's coming from a small level of competition. I get it. It's not ideal, but we're in the second round now. Like we're dealing with not ideal prospects, but guys who are mostly what you're looking for, and then just a couple things to work on. That's the nature of the NFL draft. The cons start to get longer and longer with these guys as you get deeper into the draft. So Ted Hurst at 48, they just cut Darnell Mooney, so they're lacking that like obvious burner over the top. And at 6'4", 4.42 speed, that's Ted Hurst. And also Drake London, he could be an X, but he's a power slot. He's a power slot. So you need a guy to be that X receiver to let London do that stuff. So Hurst, you put him on the line of scrimmage, let that body type battle through press. Also, 18 forced missed tackles last year at Georgia State. Could see a world where there's some yards after the catch potential at the next level as well. All right, Minnesota Vikings. As promised, I'm going to get you that secondary player that I think is totally a Brian Flores types, and that is my boy Traden Stukes. Nickel corner primarily for Arizona the last few years, but also has played some safety. And I mean, ball skills for days. Awesome tester, 4.33 speed at the combine at 6'2". Freaky athlete, long arms. He's played in the nickel, played safety. I mean, you name it, Brian Flores can deploy this guy and line him up there. And also, like, really how Flores works is like showing you one thing pre-snap, showing you another thing right before the snap, and then we're going to actually play our true coverage. And like the athleticism that Stukes has, both in his back pedal, but just like overall testing numbers, like that guy, as he's having to, we're showing this, and then we're actually playing this, like his, back pedal retreat, whatever the case may be, because I'm just kind of going about this in a vague way. I'm not trying to get too specific or anything like that. But that being said, those types of like crazy rotations that the Vikings do as the snap's kind of going underway because you're getting in your true coverage, Stukes' athleticism will fit that to a T. So Terrell at 18, Thieneman, maybe Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. We're trading Stukes in the second round. Like they got some options for that defense, and it's a secondary that needs new pieces added to it. All right. Not Connor Lew. Sorry. I don't know why I was going to say Connor Lew there. Let's get to the Detroit Lions here at 50. I'm going to have Chris Johnson be the pick here. Cornerback from San Diego State. He brings more size than they currently have with guys like DJ Reed, Terron Arnold, and Rakestraw Jr. And also like just those two first-round pick, the two drafted guys, Arnold in the first round, Rakestraw in the second, and then the free agent signing of Reed, just hasn't worked out. So considering where this team could get beat up and where they could lose games, specifically in the playoffs, I would just go ahead and try to get out in front of that. Secondary has been rough. Keep taking swings to the bat at that spot. All right, Carolina Panthers fans, say it with me. Pick 51 is going to be Zion Young. I just cannot get enough of this. I think it's a great value. He could easily go 20 picks higher than this, to be completely honest. Like, wouldn't shock me. Ended up sneaking in late round one. And I know 20 picks ahead of this is New England. I'm not saying the Patriots, but I'm just saying, like, if the instead of Keldrick Falk at 32, like, if Seattle Seahawks love Zion Young, that wouldn't shock me. So you're getting good value here at 51. And it's just a different blend of a player than Nick Scorton and Uman Mielen. And frankly, the fact that Zion Young is who he is and Scorton can collapse inside if absolutely needed, that then allows you to get in obvious passing situations where Zion Young, Derek Brown, Uman Mielen, and Scorton are all on the field together. And that's the spot you want to be living in if you're Carolina. So love Zion Young, also shores up that run defense that much more. All right, next up is the Green Bay Packers at 52. Keith Abney finally made it here. Really, normally this is like Devin Moore spot, but a couple of the extra corners stay on the board longer than they normally do. So Keith Abney, team that desperately needs to have an infusion of talent on the outside specifically. Abney gives you inside-out flexibility, but for Green Bay situation, I think you got a new outside corner to go battle for a day one starting job, to be completely honest with you. Pittsburgh Steelers, they have already gone with Jordan Tyson. This team needs to get more physical, tougher, specifically out of the nickel. So I'm going to go with Keontae Scott. This team's been looking for a nickel corner, have had a huge hole there ever since Mike Hill. All the same stuff I normally say about Pittsburgh here at 53. Pons is gone. Traden Stukes is already gone. So come on down, Keontae Scott. Love what he is as a run defender too. So love adding that type of just physicality to that defense there. And especially like it's Pittsburgh, it's in our MO, it's in our blood. So love that type of fit. Then we get back to the New York Jets here at 54. So we've gone Arvell Reese, and we're calling him an edge rusher. So like that comes important for this next pick. Mekhi Lemon, we've gone Colton Hood. So we're calling Reese as off-ball linebacker / edge, mostly as an edge rusher. Specifically, you're drafting him number 2 overall. If you're drafting him at 2 overall, you're kind of expecting him to play edge. So because of that, off-ball linebacker is still something I think they need. And frankly, like a world where you have Josiah Trotter and Arvell Reese playing off-ball linebacker, like if that's like what ends up happening for a few plays, like, oh my God, the violence those two guys would have up the middle, like that, those are two tone setters. And I mean, the stack and shed ability of Arvell Reese, Trotter being a missile coming downhill, like that would be a really fun 1-2 punch at linebacker. But again, you're taking Reese at 2. You're saying, hey, that guy's, and we just traded Jermaine Johnson. The Jets are looking at that and saying, that's our edge rusher of the future. He's going to become a superstar. And now we need an off-ball linebacker, and that is Josiah Trotter. Looking for a hammer to meet a nail in the middle of that defense, a tone setter. I got to bring some energy. Josiah Trotter through and through. LA Chargers back on the clock here at 55. They get Khalil Mack for a 1-year deal. Kind of expected that. But that to me signals that, yeah, Dafe Owe's gone. And if Owe's gone, you could go R. Mason Thomas here. Don't hate that whatsoever. But Malachi Lawrence, man, like that guy, speed around the edge, the bend, first step juice, still has long arms. Not the crazy 35 inches we heard preseason, but like 33.5 is still plenty long enough. Like this is your Dafe Owe replacement, especially since you have Tuli Tuipulotu who can collapse inside on passing downs. To have a D-line that features Lawrence, Tuli, and Khalil Mack on the field at the same time, again, like I said with the Panthers earlier, that's where you want to live. That's where the Chargers want to be living. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. This is another one where everyone, all right, say it with me. Pick 56 is going to be Grayson Halton. I just absolutely adore this fit. Specifically him on the inside on passing downs. If they keep Eric Armstead, like those two on a stunt and twist up the middle, like that could be absolutely electric. But love the first step juice. Love how fast the hands fire. Deep bag moves to go with it. And he's not just this like around 300-pound pass rush specialist. He plays the run, man. Like he's got a strong lower half, plays with good natural leverage, and shoots some gaps. Like he's not just a pass rusher. So I'm a big Grayson Halton guy. I think late second rounds, right when the window opens up. And I think with that D-line, how much they use stunts and twists with Anthony Kaepernick coming back as the DC, that's the guy, that's the fit. Chicago Bears next up at 57. I'm going to go Jay Golday. They have pretty, like Jermaine Edmonds is not going to be back. So you have TJ Edwards. And Edwards is a good football player, but he's just like a limited athlete. So I can see a world where they're like, hey, Jake Golday, that level of athleticism, that's how those two can stay on the field. Golday's the freakier athlete, the sideline to sideline speed, the coverage side, where TJ Edwards is just like, from a between the ear standpoint, built to play linebacker. That man has instincts for days, football IQ for days. So I really like that as a 1-2 punch in the middle. And obviously Golday much younger, cheaper than Jermaine Edmonds. So naturally makes a lot of sense. All right, for the San Francisco 49ers, I'm going to go back to the well with Kamari Ramsey. I think that free safety spot is a spot where they can get better. I like Mustafa as like a box safety type, but the free safety component I think can definitely get better. And you're talking about Raheem Morris after spending the last 2 years coaching up Jesse Bates, and specifically last year with Bates and Xavier Watts, two guys with great instincts and ball skills. I could just see a world where Kamari Ramsey played a lot in the slot last year, also low moving cost, shout out NFL SE. But 2 years ago for the Trojans, he played free safety. And I could see a world where you go back to that tape and Raheem Morris is looking at that as like, okay, that's the guy who can play the Jesse Bates role. Also, I will say lots of quarters, and a lot of quarters like Kamari Ramsey could just play slot, and that's one of your quarters, that's one of your lanes. So he could basically be a slot free safety, kind of shades of like Kobe Bryant and what he is for Seattle when they run quarters. So Kamari Ramsey, kind of multiple different ways you spin it, he fits for San Francisco. All right, Houston Texans, and I know they just made the David Montgomery trade. I hear you loud and clear, but I'm still going to go Jadarian Price here. The way you spin it with David Montgomery, this is weird to say about a guy who is pretty much exactly 5 months of the day older than me, born in June of 1997. I'm November of 97. So this is weird to say, but he's getting up there in age, right? Like the Lions were willing to move on from him for a reason. So you have Woody Marks, who's a different flavor than David Montgomery, and Jadarian Price is a little bit more in line with that David Montgomery style of running, but we're getting close to age 30. Injuries are going to be a thing with Montgomery. And also if you keep Montgomery around this year, you save like $5-6 million by cutting him before the next season, which would be a real easy, clean point to say, hey, thanks for everything you did. You mentored Jadarian Price, but now the 1-2 punch is going to be Price and Marks. Or, hear me out, you write out Montgomery, the next 2 years on his contract, he finishes that. He's 31 years old. You let him walk. Who knows? Maybe retires. Maybe he goes finds another deal somewhere. He walks at 31, and then you're moving into year 3 of Jadarian Price, year 4 of Woody Marks. So either way you spin it, no matter how long David Montgomery is a Houston Texan, by the back half of Jadarian Price's rookie contract, he's their lead back. So I'm a good Jadarian Price, and I do think like him learning from Monty, that's a home run. And then plus the contract, the injuries are going to eventually catch up to Monty. He's already missed some time in his career. To me, let's just go ahead and let's just have a 3-way backfield. Let's have 3 guys in that committee that all kick ass. How about that? Let's get back to the Chicago Bears. They're on the clock here at 60. And this is where I'm going to go Gabe Akis. We haven't gone edge quite yet, but I also think the ability to kind of fold inside. Akis also, he didn't quite show up at 270 at the combine, but he's a little bit more of that like Dennis Allen, historic, bigger body type, good run defender. And again, in obvious passing situations, could rotate inside, which could be interesting next to Peter Woods, who we've already taken in this mock draft. So, and then Austin Booker, then kind of like, so you get into obvious passing downs. Could we have a 4-man front that has Booker and Sweat on the outside, and then Akis and Peter Woods on the inside? God, I can only hope so, right? Because we drafted 2 of those 4 here in this video. So fingers crossed. All right, let's get on the Rams here at 61. I'm going to go Skylar Bell, man. Look, Devontae Adams is getting up there in age. So you kind of have this perfect window of time where you can have a badass set of 3 receivers in Puka, Skylar Bell, and Devonta. But then in a year or 2, let's just say 2 years time, Devontae Adams is going to hang it up. And then you're not reaching for a need. You can still go get another receiver once we get there, but Skylar Bell, Puka Nacua, I think that's a 1-2 punch that complements each other really well. And Skylar Bell, man, hats off. Way better testing numbers than I thought. 4.4 flat in the 40. I thought he could move, but I was thinking like 4.44, 4.45. 4.4 flat's fantastic. A great 10-yard split. 11-foot broad jump. 10-inch hands. I mean, way better measurements and testing numbers than I thought. So I think the second round's fair game. And honestly, his ability to run in and out breaking routes, like he's a great fit for the Sean McVay offense. All right, Denver Broncos, you're next up at 62. Went with a different running back last time around, but honestly, the more I thought about it, and I didn't necessarily get called out, but I had somebody mention that Jarian Price is a pretty similar player in a lot of ways to RJ Harvey. So I see where you're saying they're a compliment, but in a lot of ways they are similar to each other. The compliment really is Mike Washington, and I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Mike Washington, 6'1", 223, who runs a 4.33. Like this is Audric Estime, but with like top 64 juice versus Estime, who was like a day 3 guy. This is the big body, long speed, physical, make you feel it as he's running between the tackles. And then RJ Harvey, who can run between the tackles, is the lightning off of the thunder who runs. He's got the great speed, the make you miss in a phone booth type of wiggle, and he's an awesome pass catcher. Mike Washington also can catch the football. 28 receptions last year at Arkansas was a career high. So 2 guys who can both catch the football, but Mike Washington is a north-south guy who can break off a big run, and then RJ Harvey as the make you miss in a phone booth off of that. Yeah, that's the 1-2 punch there for Denver. All right, let me get back to New England. They're on the clock here at 63. This one I have R. Mason Thomas come off the board, and this is kind of like, I feel like Caleb Von Chaison's going to get some good money, and if New England's smart, they're going to look at that and be like, yeah, we break out at this point in his career, you guys can go pay him. You guys got it. It's all yours. And honestly, like with what Chaison does, like R. Mason Thomas is to me a pretty good replacement for that, especially at pick 63. Brings that spark, brings that juice in that first step, good bend around the corner, just need him to stay healthy. Not going to be great in the way of like run defense, but you throw him in a rotation with someone else you can sign in free agency, I think it'll all work out. All right, Seattle, you're next up here at 64. And I haven't gone corner yet, and I typically do that at 32. So again, I wanted to explore something different. Keldrick Falk is kind of our Tank Lawrence replacement a year in advance. So because of that, corner still up in the air, especially if Tariq Woolen leaves. Devin Moore becomes a really interesting replacement for that at 6'3", really good athlete, especially in the long speed department. 4.5 flat 40 at 6'3" is really good. Good ball skills, really good in zone coverage. So very much a kind of a Tariq Woolen replacement there at 64. And to me, that's good value to get Devin Moore. All right, round 3, Arizona Cardinals. You can cut James Conner and save, I think it's like $7.5, $8 million against the cap, and go get Jonah Coleman, 5'8", 220. Receiving production, to me, that's a pretty clear, I would just move on from James Conner. Neither one of them great long speed. Like this is a clear like-for-like replacement and a lot cheaper. Let me get to the Tennessee Titans. They moved on from Lloyd Cushenberry. So with Connor Lew making it to the 3rd round, I decided let's go that direction. I also didn't love the other center options they had on their roster. So I'm going to go with Connor Lew. To me, still the best center in this class, but it is getting closer and closer the more I watch Sam Hecht. And, Trey Zune is also going to go in this. Kind of see him as a center. Brian Parker, another guy, right tackle, convert to center. He'll go in this mock as well. So a couple of good options here once you get to the late 2nd, early 3rd round for, or really 3rd round in general for needing a center. Anyways, let's get back to the Raiders here at 67. Everyone stay with me. Elijah Surratt, you are a Las Vegas Raider. He gets to partner up with Fernando Mendoza, keep the chemistry strong with those two, let him play X. That moves Thornton into more specialist field stretching role. It makes Jack Best your true Z. We can sign a slot receiver in free agency, maybe like a Christian Kirk, just like a high floor guy who can compete and play right away. Boom, all of a sudden that offense is looking solid. We got to the Philadelphia Eagles here at 68. So we've gone corner. We've gone Max Iheanacho to kind of be our future Lane Johnson replacement. And here at 68, I'm going to go with Denai Dennis Sutton, big body, physical edge rusher who can play the run, but also especially with his arm length. He's a troublesome guy trying to block, and we really saw that at the Senior Bowl. Really good testing numbers from the Combine as well. So he's had a really strong pre-draft process. So I think 68 is certainly within the realm of possibility, and I can just see where that's the physical edge, power edge that the Eagles are kind of looking for that they don't really kind of have on their roster right now. All right, let's get to the Houston Texans here at pick 69. I'm going to go with Anthony Hill Jr. I just think you can get better than Henry To'o. And as much as I'm not like the world's biggest Anthony Hill Jr. fan, he's got flashes. And if you're telling me he's getting coached by D'Amico Ryans, I want to see where that goes. Cleveland Browns, you're next up here at 70. This is where I'm going to go back to the offensive line. We've gone tackle, then receiver, then corner. I'm going to go with Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. Solid athletic testing and a lot of zone blocking experience there at Georgia Tech. Plug him in at right guard. They have all 3 of their interior guys hitting free agency. I could see where they bring back Postage, but they also got Luke Whippler from Ohio State. Honestly, he fell in the draft longer than he probably should have. So I think you let Whippler start, and then maybe you bring back Bitonio at left guard. Like that's probably the guy I would bring back out of that bunch. You bring back Bitonio at left guard. We just drafted a right guard. We made a trade for a right tackle, drafted a left tackle. All of a sudden, I think we've got our 5. And Cleveland. All right, Washington Commanders. So I've sometimes gone receiver here, but honestly, we've had a pretty good run on like the X receiver types. I've also been seeing the rumor going around that Brandon Ayuk is going to sign with the Commanders. That definitely checks out to me. Brandon Ayuk, teammates with Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. Absolutely makes sense to me. So with all that being said, I'm going to go get this team some more pass rush juice. Part of the reason their secondary looked so bad was because it was a bad secondary. but also because they had no pass rush after all the injuries they had in like the first half of the season. So let's go give them some more firepower. And Derek Moore, first step juice for days, ability to turn speed to power. Oh yeah. So definitely a shot in the arm for that pass rush unit in Washington. Cincinnati Bengals, speaking of Sam Heck, this is where he's going to come off the board. This has kind of been the spot for me. Like Ted Karras, cut him, save the $4 million against the cap, go use it somewhere else. You can do better than Ted Karras. You can get younger than Ted Karras too. And Heck, to me, a great scheme fit and a big-time standout at the Senior Bowl. New Orleans Saints, you're on the clock here at 73. I'm going to go to the defensive line. Still think they need that kind of high-floor run defense specialist in the middle of the defense. And it could go Orange, could go Corleone, but Mickey Loomis is typically, especially on the D-line, gone after traits. And Darrell Jackson's a little high cut, but he's got the long arms and he's got the power flashes that make your jaw hit the floor. So of a Mickey Loomis type, I think Darrell Jackson would be the kind of Mickey Loomis guy. But of the other two guys, I think there's a little bit of a higher floor and more to expect if you went Big Citrus there, or maybe even Dante Corleone aside from the blood clot stuff. All right, Kansas City Chiefs. We've gone receiver, edge, and defensive interior. So here at 74, honestly, they have a couple guys hitting free agency, Brian Cook, a couple other safeties as well. And honestly, it's a safety room that I think can just get better in and of itself. Let's give this team AJ Holsey. Big body, physical. Sometimes he comes down a little too reckless downhill as a tackler, but when he connects, when he's wrapping up, he's got the form tackle. He's a hard hitter, 215 pounds, and he's just got great football IQ, jumps routes, anticipates throws really well, but also a solid athlete and good coverage defender in general too. So a little bit of everything. And honestly, the more I look at our lads, the PFF lineup, wherever you're looking at the Chiefs, starting lineup, you look at that safety spot and you're like, could do better there. So I'm going to go Halsey there at 74. Miami Dolphins, you're on the clock at 75. I'm going to have Genesis Smith now come off the board, getting a little bit of a safety run. From everything I've heard, Minka Fitzpatrick's not going to be on this roster all that long. And, with Jeff Hafley coming in as the DC, this team is definitely trying to overturn the roster or flip over the cap. So moving on from Minka makes sense. But the impact that Xavier McKinney had in Green Bay is that over-the-top, true free safety. It was immense, especially that first year with McKinney and Hafley working together in Green Bay. So Genesis Smith, one of maybe the best pure free safety of the day two guys available. So yeah, absolutely kind of a home run fit. I think a great scheme fit for Jeff Hafley, and that makes it that much easier to move on from Minka Fitzpatrick. Pittsburgh Steelers, you're on the clock at 76. I'm going to go with Jalen Farmer. A lot of people have been giving some love on Twitter for Jalen Farmer. I had a mock. It was, 2 or 3 mocks ago where people were saying, oh, wow, day 3 guy and Farmer and Wright going in this. All of a sudden, next thing you know, those names start getting a little hot. Certainly Farmer more than Wright, but I don't rule out late 3rd round for Jeremiah Wright either. But I'm going to go Jalen Farmer here. Really good testing number, 98th percentile in the 40. So I'm looking at that left guard spot. I think Pittsburgh could bring back Isaac Seumalo, but also he's just the right age. If you're the Detroit Lions, you're looking for a starter at left guard, or you're just looking for the Buffalo Bills, they lose David Edwards. If you're any one of these contenders and you just need a guy for a year or two, you just need to plug him in real quick. Isaac Seumalo might have a hotter market than I'm giving him credit for. So in that case, Mason McCormick did play a little bit of left guard his first year with Pittsburgh, primarily played right guard, but we're early enough in his career where I'm not really worried about it. Or you just make the switch with Jalen Farmer. So either way you spin it, if Pittsburgh loses Isaac Seumalo, Farmer, McCormick, one of those two guys plays left guard and the other will play right guard. Speaking of offensive line, I'm going to stick with it here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're going to get Cody Mock back. He only played in 2 games last year. He'll be your right guard, and I definitely think you can do better than Ben Bredesen at left guard. So I'm going to go with Billy Scrouth. Got hurt midway through the year for Notre Dame, but up until that point, especially in pass pro, he was having a really strong year. So I think pick 77. He's going to be another one of these names that he's going to go top 100, and people are going to start catching on here in the next couple of weeks. Indianapolis Colts here at 78. I typically at pick 47 go interior defensive line, or I go linebacker, and this kind of worked out perfectly where we already gone linebacker and a guy that I think is a total Lou Anarumo type. And then here at 78, I'm going to give you Big Citrus. You can cut Grover Stewart, save $10 million against the cap. He's over 30 years old. Let's go find a similar player, guy who can fill that role, be younger, cheaper, and be a long-term piece of that defense. Atlanta Falcons, they've already gone with Tanner Hurst. I'm going to go with Julian Neal next up. I think that outside corner spot is definitely a place they can get better. Mike Hughes been more of a nickel, but honestly, him as that 3rd corner who could play in the slot if we don't love Billy Bowman Jr., but I'm willing to see where that goes. Or he could be our 3rd boundary corner. I just like Mike Hughes for depth, long story short. So I like the idea of going with Julian Neal, especially in a zone-heavy defense. I think his athleticism and his length are really going to play there. So like him as a compliment opposite of A.J. Terrell. Back to the Baltimore Ravens. This is the floor. I had to set the floor here for Eli Stowers. This team's letting Isaiah likely walk. The perfect guy to fill into that spot would be Eli Stowers. So awesome tester at the combine. He easily could have been the second round pick to the Broncos. Like from that point on, maybe even the Chiefs, right? Like we could have had him go to Kansas City to be a Travis Kelce heir apparent. All that is on the table. But if he gets there to 80, that's your Isaiah Likely replacement in Baltimore. And damn it, that would piss me off as a Steelers fan. That would be like the perfect guy to go into that role. Jacksonville Jaguars back on the clock here at 81. We go back to my boy, Zakee Wheatley. I've been going back and forth basically between Wheatley and Genesis Smith, whichever one makes it here to the Jags. But this time around, I'm going to go with Genesis Smith. He's a tractor beam to the football, man. I just love his closing speed. And I just love the instincts he plays with. So he can play free, can play some strong, could even play some nickel at the next level. Wouldn't really surprise me. Really good tackler. And again, closing speed for days. So big fan of Zakee Wheatley. I like him as a top 100 guy. Minnesota Vikings on the clock at 82. This one, I'm going to have Trey Zune come off the board. He's actually played like 100 career snaps at center, and they're pretty good. They're honestly pretty good. So Brian Kelly, as I've been saying, he's going to retire. He did. So center is a big time hole. So Brian Parker from Duke or Trey Zune, either one could go here. I've done the Brian Parker thing to Minnesota multiple times before, so that's why I'm deciding to go Zune. Otherwise, I probably would go Brian Parker, to be completely honest. But then that takes us to the Carolina Panthers here at 83. I've been saying all draft cycle, their linebacker play last year, specifically in coverage, was atrocious. The perfect coverage linebacker that they could use is Kyle Lewis. He's 6'1", 220, so TBD on what he's going to be. Also, frankly, this team could get better than nickel. Like Cho Smith-Wade is fine, but honestly, Kyle Lewis is your slot. That could be the perfect way to kind of just hide him a little bit more against the run, but get all the coverage upside and his athleticism on the field. So zone-heavy defense like that, I could totally see where that's even a possibility for Kyle Lewis. All right. Next up is pick number 84, Green Bay team that I typically go defensive interior or corner with the first pick. So this, again, worked out really well. We've already gone corner. Let's give them the Godfather, Dante Corleone. I know they just made, or actually they moved on from Colby Wooden. So frankly, even more of a position where it makes sense to go defensive interior and get some run defense reinforcements. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers here at 85. I know this is going to tick off a lot of Steelers fans, but like frankly, we got to have a conversation because every quarterback can give the Pittsburgh Steelers, look, guys, Josh Allen's not on the market. We're going to have a less than ideal selection here, and it's probably going to come in the NFL draft behind Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like 80% sure it's going to be Ty Simpson at 21. I'm 80% sure that that's going to be the pick. Hosting the draft, Mike McCarthy comes in. You have a guy to start. To me, it makes all the sense in the world. But if they don't do Ty Simpson in the first round, to get us to 100% certainty, Drew Aller will be one of the 3 third-round picks the Steelers have. If it's not Ty in the first round, it will be Aller with one of those 3. And last mock, I had Aller go 93 to the Los Angeles Rams. And because the Steelers' next pick is after that, I'd rather take Aller at 99. But frankly, I'm going to have the Rams take a quarterback there. So I'm going to go with Drew Aller here at 85. This is a little early for me. I'd much rather be at pick 99 just to kick the tires and see, I guess. But there's going to be a team that talks themselves into Drew Aller, especially after the combine and all the praise and love that he got throwing there. He's 6'5", he's 240, almost 230 pounds. Like he has all the prototypical boxes you want to check. And like, look, Mike McCarthy, like everything I'm saying about like why they would draft a quarterback in the first round. If Aller's there in the third round and they haven't taken Ty Simpson, this is the guy that developed Joe Montana in Kansas City. Like that was part of the press release they put out. Like that's garbage. Joe Montana was fully developed by then. But that's what I'm saying. A QB whisperer, guy who's coming from in-state, Penn State to Pittsburgh. Like if it's not Ty in the first round, I'm to get me 100% sure it will be Drew Aller with one of those third-round picks if it's not Ty at 21. So that's what we'll do. I'm not really in love with it. But Steelers fans, let me hear what your prefer is, especially the people who are saying, no way we do Ty at 21. You're stupid. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about, yet you're watching my video. Anyways, if you're one of those people who says there's no way Ty at 21, well, let me hear your thoughts about Drew Aller in the third round because I'm telling you that's the alternative. All right. Anyways, let me get off that soapbox. Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not done with this offensive line. Frankly, both guard spots can get better, and change. Like, I think Zion Johnson could be better off in a more zone-oriented offense. So they could just keep him around versus like the gap stuff with Greg Roman. But in the event they let him walk, I'm going to go Jennings Dunker here. And so Vega Ioane becomes your left guard. Jennings Dunker becomes your right guard. And he's another one of these guys, kind of like what I said about Vega. Like Jim Harbaugh could look at Jennings, and as much as I have trepidation about who he is, I think it's an easier move inside to guard. Played a lot of zone blocking at Iowa. He's a scheme fit for Mike McDaniel, and here we're moving him inside. But like with what he is as a run blocker, there's another one of these guys where I could just see Jim Harbaugh being like, football player, get him on my team right now. So I think it kind of matches up with what Mike Mack's looking for, but also Mike McDonald, I should say. Mike Mack is up in Seattle, but Mike McDonald's looking for, but also a football player that Jim Harbaugh can get on board with. All right, pick number 87, Miami Dolphins. We haven't gone edge to this point. And, no more Bradley Chubb. Already some question marks I've seen about Chop Robinson and how much of a fit in that Jeff Hafley defense he is. But here they want to go more 4-man front. So in that case, Joshua Josephs, that's what they did at Tennessee. I do think he's a good scheme fit. And I've heard the NFL likes him a good bit. So I think top 100 is certainly a possibility for Joshua Josephs. All right, back to the Jacksonville Jaguars. On the clock here at 88. This one, I'm going to have Brian Parker come off the board. So if you're a Vikings fan and you like Parker more than Zune, to just flip those two picks, Parker goes to the Vikings, Zune goes to the Jags. I do think they could use a guy on the interior. And specifically, if they did go Zune, I could see a world where that works out a little bit better for the Jags, because to me personally, I'm better with Hainsey at center than I am with Patrick McCarry playing guard. So I'd almost rather draft a guard than a center. But either way, I think they can get better at both those spots. So I'm just going with the best interior offensive lineman. And to me, that's Brian Parker II. But maybe Zune is a better guy because maybe he's a guard. Anyways, Chicago Bears, you're next up at 89. Haven't gone safety just yet, and I'm on board with Bud Clark sneaking into the top 100. I think he's a good enough football player. Had a great combine, had a great Senior Bowl, specifically day 2 and 3, getting to see his coverage skills on full display. So sounds like they're trying to keep Kevin Byard there in Chicago, which is, in one sense, it makes sense. He was a great player last year for that team. He found the nice fit and the nice role for that team. And also he's 30-something. So like comparing that to 27-year-old Jaquan Brisker, which one of those guys is going to be asking for more money? It's definitely Jaquan Brisker. So I could just see where they're like, hey, Byard's older, but he's also cheaper. Let's stick with that. And then we draft a guy and in a great safety class, and Bud Clark falls right in your lap at 89. And like his coverage ability and an Al Harris coach defense, oh my God, like turnovers for days. Miami Dolphins, you're back on the clock here at pick number, what do we got? 90. I'm going to go JC Davis. I haven't talked about JC Davis a whole lot on this channel, but I'm looking at JC Davis as a guard, to be completely honest with you. He is a badass against the run. He is a great run blocker, and specifically as a zone blocker. I think he's still a TBD, kind of like work in progress as a pass protector. And I know Dolphins fans are like, but the Jonas Evanaya, you're doing it all over again. Jonas Evanaya. Look, just because it's another tackle, we're moving inside the guard, doesn't mean he's the same player. But also keep in mind, Evanaya played left guard for you last year. He was a right tackle at Arizona. So like moving him to right guard and replacing Cole Strange, frankly, it can't get much worse than Cole Strange given where his career's gone. No disrespect to Cole Strange, but flipping over Evanaya to the right side of the offensive line might be a catalyst for him to play better. And then JC Davis is a fantastic scheme fit for Bobby Slowick. We'll move him inside to play left guard. All right, Buffalo Bills, you're on the clock now at 91. They made the trade for DJ Moore. This is also the first video since we had the DJ Moore trade. How did I forget that? So that's where their second round pick went, and that's part of why I was content moving down, getting pick 104. But here, to me, DJ Moore's on an X. He's definitely more of a Z. So I'm just going to draft Malachi Fields, physical, ball tracking, contested catch guy, put him on the line of scrimmage, let him battle through press coverage. That then allows DJ Moore to be your Z. And then you have Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, both guys that can play in the slot. Kincaid getting there and find enough to play in line, / you could go 2 tight end sets, make him more of an H-back. So all of a sudden you've got all these options around Josh Allen. And like, frankly, that's what we've been wanting. Even as like non-Bills fans, we've been like, okay, you have an alien at quarterback. Can you start putting real weapons around him? So Malachi to play the X, DJ Moore to play the Z, the motley of crew of weapons left, all play in the slot. They loaded up on those slot body types, and they've got plenty of options there to play on the inside now. All right, San Francisco 49ers, another guy we haven't really talked about in any of these videos. I'm going to go with Cage Casey. Again, another guy I see as a guard. The arm length does check out, though, to play tackle, like just barely clears that threshold. But this is another one of these things where you didn't get Proctor 27. So I'm drafting Cage Casey saying, hey, that's your left guard of the future. Awesome run blocker, specifically in the zone blocking scheme. And then who knows, maybe by year 3 and Trent Williams hangs it up, maybe Cage Casey can play left tackle for you. So we at least have that possibility here at 92. But I'm kind of thinking that's our left guard, and we'll cross the Trent Williams successor bridge once we get there. Anyways, let's get on the Rams. As promised, I was going to go quarterback here, so that's why I had to have Drew Aller come off the board, because otherwise, like Drew Aller learning from Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, lookout world, like maybe that's the place where Drew Aller actually learns how to play some high-level quarterback. But you know what else could be fun is Cole Payton. You know, like you see the 49ers when they took Trey Lance, like guy with the athleticism plus the big arm, and it's like, oh man, what could Kyle Shanahan do with a guy that can move like that? And Cole Payton's got the arm. Like he's got arm talent for days, and he totally fits with Sean McVay there. But then you're also telling me, man, what if you gave Sean McVay this mobile type of guy? Like what if the guy could move way more than Matt Stafford could? So I'm just going to kick the tires on that. That could be a really interesting developmental piece. Year or two of Matt Stafford, turn it over to Cole Payton. What could that look like? Then we get back to the Denver Broncos here at 94. Hey, look, guy I'm a little bit late to the party on, but totally advanced Joseph type. Keyshawn Elliott, 6'2", 232, I think, or 231 at the combine. But look at that, pass rush grade, run defense, downhill linebacker, thumper. We haven't gone linebacker yet for Denver. And they have 2 guys hitting free agency. Dre Greenlaw's up and over 28 years old. I think they need to get another guy into that body, into that room, younger, cheaper, into that room. So, Keyshawn Elliott, very much a Vance Joseph downhill type of thumping linebacker. And get him here at 94. some pretty solid value, and a guy I'm a little late to the party on, so I wanted to shout out another new name to these mock drafts. All right, to the New England Patriots, and like real quick, we could go guard, and specifically like looking for a left guard. I don't know. There's really not, honestly, like left guard, Bo Stevens, more of a zone guy than gap, and he's got first percentile arm length, so I don't really want to put him in a gap scheme. Jeremiah Wright's a right guard. Armaj Reed Adams, you could, but again, played right guard the last 2 years, so even that, Nolan Rucci, moving him inside, but again, he's played right tackle, so like you can see the left guard thing didn't really work out anyways, but also second-year guy in Will Campbell, second-year center Jared Wilson. Let's go get a veteran to play left guard. So with all that said, we haven't gone an X receiver for New England either, so I'm going to give them Deshaun Stribling. 4.36 40 was like nowhere near my bingo board. Like I couldn't have ever imagined that, despite how much I love Deshaun Stribling. But his blocking ability, like that, this guy absolutely will fit with Vrabel. And like, what a perfect guy to have behind Mac Hollins / could just replace Mac Hollins, more long speed, and a guy who was really good after the catch in that Ole Miss. I know it's RPO heavy, but like throwing those hitches to Stribling, he was hard to bring down after the catch. So need to expand his route tree to be more prototypical X, but he's got the speed, he's got the size, he's got the physicality, he's got the yards up the catch, he can block. Here at 95, this is a great future X receiver for that team. All right, let's get to Seattle then at 96. This one I have Jeremiah Wright come off the board. And again, I think late first round is fine for Jeremiah Wright. I think he's a good fit for that zone blocking scheme. And I could see a world where he wins that job over Anthony Bradford sooner rather than later. Jeremiah Wright, go check out, if you don't believe me, go check out Brandon Thorne's recaps of the Senior Bowl and see what name continuously pops up all 3 days there in the Senior Bowl recaps from Brandon Thorne. One of the smartest guys when it comes to evaluating online. Just saying. All right. Anyways, Minnesota Vikings. Last time we went Seth McGowan here, but I'm going to follow through on my running back rankings, which that just came out on the channel. If you want to see my running back ranks, definitely go check it out. I love McGowan, but I am going to go with Emma Johnson here. They have the power back in Jordan Mason, the guy to do the short yardage stuff. Emma Johnson, 4.56 40 is less than ideal, really. So you could go Damone Claiborne, who actually, if we're going off pure my running back rankings, Claiborne's ahead of Emma Johnson. So you could go there. But Emma Johnson's got a lot of love from the league. And dude, like sub 1.6, 10-yard split, super shifty in a phone booth, and frankly, with KOC and in that LA background, right when they made that switch to gap, he was there. And then the trade for Jordan Mason. I think KOC is kind of like signaling to us he wants guys to run north south, and that's what I highlighted a ton in my running back video. So I don't want to give away too much of that here, but part of my draw to Emma Johnson is like this guy has so many, like this guy is so shifty in a phone booth. And he's got great burst from the line of scrimmage. The long speed starts to taper off 20, 30 yards down the field. So he gets caught 25, 30 yards down the field. But that being said, great burst from the line of scrimmage, the ability to make you miss, but that type of elusive back in a north-south running style, I'm a sucker for a guy like that. And like Ramondre Stevenson was a guy who I liked coming out of college, who's kind of the opposite. You look at him, you're like, oh, big body physical runner. But he plays like he wants to be this elusive back and make you miss in a phone booth. So I don't know. I kind of like that about Stevenson, and Emma Johnson's almost the inverse of that. So I think his north-south running style is kind of what KOC is looking for. And the burst, the shiftiness is something they just don't have in that backfield in Minnesota. Plus a guy who caught almost 50 passes last year. So to make Nine's life easier, let's go get another pass catcher in that offense. And Emma Johnson will make his life easier. All right, the Jets. This is because of the trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. So as promised, we are going to go X receiver. And again, this could just be Adonai Mitchell. But what wouldn't hurt? What if you got another Adonai Mitchell type, physical, vertical route tree, honestly, a better body type to play the X and battle through press coverage, 209 pounds, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty much where he came in at the combine. So if anything, like Lance has got even more of the X prototypical body type. So you just let him and Adonai Mitchell battle it out. Like whoever the best man wins, whoever your best X receiver is your best X receiver week one. So I'm going to go with Bryce Lance, off the chart combine tester. To me, there's a lot to be added to that route tree. It's pretty much just goes, posts, and comebacks. That's pretty much the route tree. But great linear, long speed, explosive off the line of scrimmage, could go make some crazy 50-50 ball grabs. So big body X receiver, there you go with the Jets. And frankly, like you probably just let Adonai get the chance to do it this year. And if he flames out, then you just start letting Bryce Lance play that role. So, yeah. Boom. 2 more picks to go. Pick 99, Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sorry, we need 2 receivers. And especially considering we drafted a guy with an abundance of an injury history here at 21 and Jordan Tyson. And look, last mock I went with Deion Burks, but I said that with the caveat of I think Antonio Williams is the better pro right now. Burks is just coming off the crazy combine testing, so that was the post-combine mock. Let's go that direction. And I will say, I know Zachariah Branch has a ton of fans. I just see a lot of schemed up production. I get it. He's shifty out of his route. Just between Antonio Williams, Zachariah Branch, which one's more likely to become Kadarius Toney? To me, that's Zachariah Branch. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like of those two, which is more likely to be a Kadarius Toney? I'll go with Branch. So I'm going to go with the safer play. I'm going to go with Antonio Williams. And look at this mock. A clear cut, awesome outside wide receiver to complement DK Metcalf. A nickel corner we haven't had since Mike Hilton. A guard in the event that we potentially lose Isaac Seumalo, developmental quarterback, Antonio Williams then to be a day one slot player for us. Let's go. And I mean, that could be Roman Wilson, but look, it's, how many years are we going to sit on our hands and say, oh, maybe Roman Wilson? It's time to go make some plays, overhaul that wide receiver room. It's a new coaching staff, new offensive system coming in. So yeah, I'm going to go Antonio Williams in like high floor slot receiver. Guy gets open, special teams value. That's an easy pick there at 99. And last but not least, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know Newsome is an impending free agent. So with that said, I wanted to go corner here, and I'm just not really there with Davis and Igbenogson. I'm fine with the day 3 selection, shot in the dark. He's just too grabby for me. I'm not the world's biggest Dalen Everett guy. Specifically, he's like throttling down. It feels like he gets thrown out of pictures there. Like comeback routes, he's just out of the mix. But awesome combine testing, and I think in a zone-heavy Jags defense, his body and his athleticism will play a lot more versus a lot of man coverage at Georgia. So honestly, I could see a world where like that's the better fit, and we might get a better version of Dalen Everett at the pro level than we did at the college level. But guys, that will do it for my updated 3-round mock draft. All 100 picks have been made, and I want to hear what you have to say about each and every selection. Let me know down below in the comment section, or if you want to have a chat in my DMs, feel free to DM me with the @ right below my box. But let me hear your thoughts. Who went too high? Who went too low? Who's your squad? And what you think of the hold that I gave your team? That's really the most important thing to me. And also, let me just note, like, you leave your thoughts in the comments. That's a free way to support the channel, boost out the algorithm, gets this video out to other draft fans. So if you can't become a paid subscriber of the website, you want a free way to help out the channel and help me out, leave me a comment. Just let me know your thoughts. Are you a Bucs fan, Panthers fan, Packers fan, Steelers fan, whatever the case may be? Let me know your squad, and let's have a respectful conversation. Even if you don't like the picks, don't call me an idiot. I've done the work. Just because we don't see it eye to eye doesn't mean I'm a moron. So let's have a respectful conversation about what I could have done differently if you didn't like the picks that I gave your squad. But also let me know your thoughts on all these trades. Like, who was the winner of the Trent McDuffie trade? Who won the Max Crosby trade? Who won the DJ Moore trade? Let me hear all those trade thoughts down below. I'd love to have a conversation about the trade discourse that we kind of talked about a little bit in this mock draft. But we got receiver rankings on the horizon, tons of guests coming on, and this is the week where free agency starts. So one of those videos this week is going to be how did free agency affect the draft? So I'm excited to have that guest come on and kind of break down, a handful of free agent signings and which ones made the most impact on changing draft needs / changing the board the most. So be on the lookout for that video, plus all the guests that are coming on the horizon here on the 32 Beat Writers YouTube channel. I want to say thank you for checking out today's 3-round mock draft. Be on the lookout for lots more draft content. But until next time, my name is Teach. We are signing off.